Okay, welcome back, students. This is going to be a video for preparing for midterm presentations, which will most likely be occurring in the next couple weeks. I will give you more specific dates once I'm confident of when we will be doing the presentations. Okay, now this file right here is a Microsoft Word document, and it gives the basic information about how to do the midterm presentation and the points for the midterm presentations. And I will upload this file to the CTL. So you can download this later and then review this more after you've seen the video. There will be some other files that I'll also upload to the CTL that you'll want to take a look at. And I'll go over those in just a little bit, okay? So the first thing you need to know is that when you prepare for the midterms, because it is a speaking presentation, you'll want to do this. Choose a topic. Okay. Now, topic in general, in Korean you say 주제. So the topic should be something of interest to you, whether it's your major, hobbies or interests, or something that you hope to do in the future could be good potential topics. Okay, but a topic is very general. So here are some examples of topics that students have often done in previous semesters. You've got sports, food, travel, music, movies, history, art, hobbies and interests, volunteer work, fashion, your major, role plays, TV talk shows, and interviews. So these are some of the common ones, and they usually are very good choices. But you're not limited to these topics. There are many other topics that you could choose from, okay? But once you choose your topic, you still need to give more information related to your topic, okay? So in the coming weeks, after you've seen this video, you should be thinking about your topic choice. And then in the second part here, right here, once a topic is chosen, decide what you want to talk about, okay? So up here, you have some topic ideas. And then once you've chosen that topic, you need to decide what it is you want to focus on related to that topic, okay? So I give an example here. If your topic, your general topic was sports, lots of Korean students like soccer, for example, right? So soccer is an example of a sport. Now, soccer itself, though, is still quite general. So we need to be even more specific, more detailed. So here you see it says Korea's K-League. All right, so we've got the Korean Soccer League discussing about the teams in the K-League. So you have so many soccer teams in the K-League, and you could discuss about the teams. And also mention the top players from the teams. So this person would generally talk about sports with a focus on soccer. And then even more focused, the Korean League only. So we're not talking about like the European League, other Asian leagues, or South America or anything like that, just the Korean League. And then not just the teams in the league, but the top players of those teams. So that would be their focus, okay? And this lets me, your professor, know what it is that you want to talk about, all right? So choosing your topic and getting your focus, your main idea for your topic is most important in preparing, okay? So you want to think about those two things. Okay, now for the presenters, you have, if you're presenting alone, now I'm going to change this for this semester because of the amount of time we have. So I'm going to change that to 3 to 4 minutes, okay? Many of you will probably present alone because it's difficult to get with other students and you want to be careful with the social distancing. So many of you probably will do your presentation alone, which is totally fine. So 3 to 4 minutes is enough, okay? If it's 2 people, then we'll say I'm going to change this as well. We'll say 6 to 8 minutes. And if there was actually a need for 3 people, we'll just say 12 to 13 minutes. Actually make that 14, just to make sure you have enough time. Okay, so in the past, even for last semester when students had Zoom lessons, some students did opt to work together, and that's totally fine if you want to do that. And we can do that with the Zoom meetings because we can share the PowerPoint presentation or whatever tool you're using, and then your class members in your team can take turns talking. So that would still be possible, okay? Now, if you're working in teams, each student must speak equally because we want to make sure that it's balanced as to how much each person is talking during the presentation, okay, in order to get maximum points. I do recommend that you practice using it with a stopwatch or just use the clock as a timer so that you can gauge how long your presentation is taking. So when you practice and prepare, check the time and see how long it's taking you. That way you don't lose points because you're over the amount of time or under the amount of time. Because as you see here, it says, do not go over the time and do not be under the time, okay? Because you would lose points for that. And I'm gonna explain in a minute here how you get the points. Now, you'll see here in stars, it says you will need to create an outline, okay? So an outline is going to be a written format of your plan for your presentation, okay? And the outline document file, I will upload that up to the CTL also, so you can download that and use that as a template to create your outline, okay? Because later this will be an assignment that you'll need to complete before the midterm presentations begin, okay? So I will be uploading that outline later for you. Let's go to the point system. Okay, the grading criteria or the rubric is, first of all, 25 points is the maximum points you can get for the midterm exam, okay? And it's broken up into 5 parts, which would total up 25 points, okay? The first example is creativity, and creativity is the most points you can get in this presentation. And the reason why is because I want you guys to try to be creative, make your presentation interesting so that students are engaged and want to learn and find out more based on your talk. If it's not interesting, if it's boring, students are not going to be listening very carefully, okay? So to be creative, you need to be unique, imaginative, okay? Creative use of props and visual aids. So what you want to do is most of you are going to show a PowerPoint presentation, though if you don't want to do a PowerPoint presentation, it's still possible to do your presentation without it. Meaning you could use other material like pictures, drawings. If you have a blackboard or a whiteboard, you could use those in order to show things. But there's many different ways to show during a presentation without using PowerPoint. So if you don't want to do a PowerPoint, it is possible, okay? And I'm gonna give you some examples later so you can see how that's possible. Okay, number 2, we have preparation. Now, preparation will be the second most points that you can get in this presentation. You must have everything ready at the start of the presentation. So you need to make sure that your microphone, your camera, your computer, or whatever device you're using is working properly, and that if you're doing, for example, a PowerPoint, that your PowerPoint is ready and working, okay? So make sure your PowerPoint will work on the computer that you're using, okay? So that's very important. Now, preparation also includes that you have memorized and practiced and prepared so that when you do your presentation, you are not reading from a script or paper, and you're not reading from the PowerPoint. You're speaking to the audience, you're looking into the camera, and you already know what you're going to say, okay? That's going to give you your points for preparation. Number 3 is delivery, which is worth up to 4 points. This includes eye contact. So that means that your eyes should be focused on the camera and to your audience, okay? You shouldn't be looking down or looking off the screen, reading from a paper or anything like that. Your eye contact should be on the camera the whole time, okay? Pronunciation would be important. We have to understand what you're saying. I'll be listening that you're using the proper grammar, and that, if, for example, if you're using past tense, that you're pronouncing it correctly and you're using the correct form of the past tense. Intonation, you definitely want to use intonation because you want to sound like you're interested in your presentation, and you want to show some emotion, put stress on words so that your audience is more engaged, okay? Meaning that your audience will enjoy the presentation because it sounds interesting and you are showing enthusiasm, okay? Now, the final part for delivery is audience reaction and audience interaction. Okay, now audience reaction is how your audience is listening and reacting to your presentation. So, for example, if your audience looks like they're interested and they want to find out more and they seem like they're enjoying it, then that's good reaction, okay? And then in the interaction, if they answer questions that you give, or you, for example, do a quiz and have them answer some questions for you, this would be good interaction. And you will get points for that. So 4 points for delivery. Number 4 is structure. Okay, so structure, up to 4 points as well. You need to have 3 parts, 3 components of your presentation. First would be the introduction, second, the body, and then third, the conclusion. So those 3 parts are necessary in order for the structure to be correct, okay? And then in just a little bit later, I'm going to show you what the structure looks like through an outline, okay? So I'll show you an example of an outline so that you can see the structure. And as long as you have all 3 parts, introduction, body, and conclusion, you'd get all 4 points guaranteed, okay? All right, now the last part, which I usually feel is the easiest, is to show enthusiasm and to have a good attitude during your presentation, worth up to 4 points. And really, it's 4 easy points if you do your presentation with a smile. So if you look enthusiastic, you look interested, and you're smiling during your presentation, you're gonna get points for enthusiasm and attitude, okay? Look like you're interested in the topic you're talking about. Your body language and facial expression should show that you're doing your best, okay? So having the good eye contact, smiling, speaking loud and clear, okay, and speaking confidently shows your enthusiasm and positive attitude. That'd be 4 easy points if you do that, okay? Now, after the rubric here, the grading criteria, you'll see down here we have things to do and things not to do, okay? So when you download this file later from the CTL, I would like you to go over these and make sure you understand these, okay? So obviously you need to do things like use only English, have good eye contact, speak loud and clear, smile and look interested, okay? Use simple English. Now this is an important one. Simple English meaning don't use difficult words, all right? If you use difficult words, your audience cannot understand. If you have to use a difficult word, then you need to explain what that means, or give an example, or break it down into more simple terms so that the other students can understand it well. And then be sure to choose a topic you're interested in. So this is probably like the most important, okay? It should be a topic that you really like. And then under things not to do, if you're preparing a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, do not use type that is hard to see. Okay, so last time students use some fancy type or type that is too small, or the color does not match well with the background, and then we can't read the type well. And sometimes your type even is covered by some of the photograph or images that you have in your PowerPoint display. So you need to be careful that the words and the sentences, the type that you have shows very well on the screen, okay? Like I mentioned earlier in the grading part, do not read from the PPT or the computer display. Your job is to talk to the class and tell them about your topic, not to be reading, okay? So don't read from your PPT, don't read from a paper or a script, okay? And I'll just put that here, like so, okay? Do not look up or down or out the window. So meaning don't be distracted, and don't be looking off to the side or anything, because then I'm assuming you're reading from paper. You're not memorized or prepared. And then 5, do not mumble when you speak. So mumbling is when you don't speak clearly. You speak in a low voice like this. Hi, everybody. This is called mumbling. And when you mumble, people cannot understand what you're saying. So you need to speak clearly, use good intonation and enunciation when necessary, okay? And this way, everybody can understand you well. All right, now, here is something that's very important as you prepare. If you're going to be using pictures or information, and I'll put that in here, pictures, information from the internet, or for example, pictures that are not yours, okay? So you should do what we call cite the source. Now, if you're using pictures that are yours, like from your phone or from your camera, and they're your pictures, then you don't have to worry about citing the source. But citing the source means that the information and the pictures that you used from the internet, you're giving the source or location of where you got the information or pictures and images, okay? So let me give you an example. I'm going to go to the internet and go to a search engine. And let's say that my topic is soccer. Okay, now I'm going to go to images. And then here I can find a bunch of pictures related to soccer. Okay. And maybe the person who is talking about soccer, maybe they're talking about the EPL or international soccer in general. Let's say I'm looking for a good picture here. Hold on a second. Okay, now here. Okay, this is a good picture, and this is from the EPL, the English Premier League. This player plays for Arsenal. And then I want to use this picture in my presentation. So let's say I go to the picture, and then I want to save this and then add it to my PowerPoint display, right? So the question though is, because this is not your photo, this is not your image, okay? So we should cite the source of where this came from. Now, if I go back to the previous page, at the search engine, here's the picture, right? And here is, hold on a second, here is the source for it. But the actual picture is coming from here, this source. So what we want to do is you'd want to copy and paste this URL from the source, and then add that to your PowerPoint, and you could put it either underneath your picture, or you could provide one slide in your PowerPoint where you have all of your sources listed, okay? Either way would be okay, but it lets me know that you got the picture or image from the internet, and it lets me know where you got it from, okay? And this is important in order to avoid plagiarism, okay? Because plagiarism is when you steal or use material that's not yours and use it as if it is yours, okay? And for educational purposes, it's okay to use like pictures and information from the internet. However, you have to cite the source, give proof that you're using that source or information and where you got it from, okay? So that's very important. Now, for ideas, for example, if you're trying to figure out what kind of topic and what kind of focus you want to have related to your topic, I recommend that you go to this site right here, and here's the URL, and this will be in this file when you download it from the CTL. This URL will be here. But if I go back to the internet, and I can show you the URL here. So the same URL goes to this site called the Chemie Awards. And the Chemie Awards, I explained to you before, is English competition. So students who participate in this competition have to do a presentation just like they do in the classroom. And so what they did with this, this website is they give you examples. If you choose presentations in the classroom and click on it, it will show you examples of presentations that students have done in the past. Okay, and these are presentations that were done well, and the students got good grades. And for those who participate in the chemies, they did well in the chemies as well. So these two students here are focusing on the weather in Korea, and you'll see that they prepared their own material. They're not using a PowerPoint display. Okay, so they used cutouts, they did drawings and coloring, and attached them to a paper, and then they put that on their blackboard. So some students could do it this way. So whether you're at home or you're at school and using a classroom, you could just attach this to the wall, and then while you're doing your presentation using Zoom, you could show us your images. So this would be a lot of good visual aids and props in which you get a lot of points on creativity. Okay, this two students here, they're talking about blood types, and they do use a PowerPoint display, but they also have a visual aids. So they use these letters to indicate blood types. Now this student, kind of like what we would do with show and tell, brought in his toy that he made. He has a PowerPoint, but he has the actual toy as well, because this was his hobby, and he can talk about it and show it at the same time. Okay, now this is more of a unique topic idea, all right? And here we have, okay, hobbies and interests. So here they have an S board in which they give information on their PPT. They have the real S board in which they can show it, and they can even do a demonstration how to use it, how to write it. So also very good on creativity. Okay, now this student here, strange sea creatures. So what they're doing is talking about a subject that maybe is related to their major. So to them, that's interesting. But notice though, in their PowerPoint display, they have the name sea spider. Okay, but they did that in Korean. So this is a big no-no. It's okay to have some Korean text in your display, but you must have the English also. So if you want to have Korean, make sure you have the English with it together, not just the Korean only, because it's an English presentation, not a Korean one. Okay, travel is a good idea. And here, these guys did a role play, and notice that they're wearing costumes and makeup. And their topic was Romeo and Juliet. They're doing a magic trick, but they're also wearing costumes, and they're also wearing wigs, and they have their items, their playing cards, as they do their tricks. Okay, this student also, no PowerPoint presentation, but she made cutouts. She even uses the blackboard to write on it as she explains about her topic, pollution in the sea. Okay, now they do a cooking class, and you can see they prepared all their material, also no PowerPoint display. Okay, and the next one here, they also do kind of a cooking, but what they do is they demonstrate how to make the food, and they actually are making the food at the same time. And they even have a PowerPoint to help with understanding the process of making, in this case, delicious desserts. Okay, in her case, it was a sandwich, and she has all the material and explains the process or steps to make a sandwich. And even something like this, these two boys, they made tteokbokki. So they explained how to make it, and then they showed the process during the presentation. Okay, movies is also another popular choice. Now here, this girl talked about her favorite movie and did a PowerPoint, showing the slides of images and pictures that related to the movie and gave information about the characters. and the actors. Whereas here they did a parody of the movie Titanic. So, they're kind of like making the funny parts of the movie and showing them. And then here, again, another story. So they do a role play and they make up their own material and costumes. And again, here you see somebody with their hobbies and interests. Okay, and then talk about that. So there's many different ways to do the presentation. And as you can see, some students prepare a PowerPoint and some students do not. And that is totally fine as long as you have some material and visual aids to show and to be able to explain about. Okay, so I highly recommend that you go to this site. Now, the other thing you can do while you're here is down here, you have examples of students' presentations in video format. So you can actually watch the videos and then see how they did their presentation. Because I think it'll help you with getting ideas and also help you to see how a good presentation is done, okay? So please do visit that, and that will help you a lot. Now, next what I'd like to do is go over the outline format, okay? And okay, hold on a second. Let me find it. Okay, here we go, right here. Okay, so when you do your preparation for the presentation, you're going to need to create an outline. And I mentioned earlier that your outline will be an assignment that you need to prepare before we start the midterm presentations, okay? So in preparation, as I mentioned earlier, first you would need to choose a topic, okay? And in your outline, you're going to want to put down, for example, that your topic, if it's sports, you'd write down sports. If it's movies, art, if it's something related to your major, that's going to go here under topic, okay? Now you're also going to need to decide who your audience is. Now your audience in this case will be your peers, meaning your classmates. The students in your class will be listening, and of course me, your professor, okay? You'll need to give your presentation a title so that we know what the presentation is about. But this one here, letter D, where it says purpose of speech, this is one of the most important parts of organizing your outline. So I marked this one in red, okay? And this is one that most students usually do not mention in their presentation, but it's so important. Okay, so you want to put this in your outline and you want to say this when you do your actual presentation, okay? So the purpose of the speech, it says here. So we know that your topic is sports, but what is the purpose of talking about sports? Okay, so here's an example. To educate the audience about the best sports in Korea, all right? So this gives me an idea of what they want to talk about, okay, what the focus is for their talk, okay? So again, letter D, purpose of the speech is very, very, very important. Okay, method of organization. Now, some students, notice I put optional here, meaning that you don't necessarily have to put this in your outline. But just so you understand, method of organization, for example, some students in their introduction will put an index or a table of contents at the beginning, indicating the things that they will talk about and in what order during their presentation, okay? Okay, so first off, you have to prepare, you have to think about your topic and the purpose of your topic, okay? Second, outline your introduction, all right? Now, in your introduction, you'll definitely want to give a greeting. You could say, hi, hello, welcome, my name is. B, you can use an attention getter, and this is also optional. I mean, you don't have to do this, but you might, if the topic was sports, you might say, oh, do you love sports? I do. You might even say, I love sports. Okay, so this would be an attention getter, just something to get the audience interested in your topic. Okay, now C is most important here in your introduction, your thesis statement. Now your thesis statement is really the same as the purpose, same meaning, okay? So your thesis statement should state what your purpose is for talking about your particular topic. In this case, it's related to sports. And here's an example. My goal today is to give you some interesting facts and information about sports in Korea. Okay. Now, in your outline, you may have an overview, and even during the presentation, you may have an overview, which just very quickly and briefly describes what you're going to talk about before you get into the main content. Okay. And one way to start is to say, I want to begin by, and then you give the information. Okay, now, step 3 would be the body. Okay, now in your outline, remember I mentioned earlier, you'll have your introduction, body, and conclusion. So those 3 parts are important in your outline, okay? And that's how you get your structure, which is worth up to 4 points. Okay, so in the body, you want to transition from the introduction to the body, and right here you'll see it. Transition signals moving from introduction to body. So you're now switching from the introduction to the body. And one way to start that is to say, I will first cover, and then you'll give the information. Okay, now, so in the body, what you're trying to do is give your main ideas, and you may have up to 3 main ideas. Some may have 2, some may only have 1 main idea, and that's okay, depending on how many are in your team, or if you're presenting alone, or depending on how many bits of information you want to give. Okay, so for sports, main idea 1 is the K-League soccer. Okay, then what they want to do is give supporting details, any kind of examples, visual aids and props. Okay, and then now main idea 1 is finished, so we want to transition into the next main idea. So they use the word next. Next, I will go over my second point. So next is a transitional word to let us know that we're going to the next point. Okay, so main idea 2 would be the baseball league. And then they give supporting ideas, some details and examples, any kind of visual aids or props that are explained about baseball. Okay, and now after they finish main idea number 2, they want to transition to main idea number 3. And then here's the transition. Now I'll talk about, and then more. So now is the transitional word. And for main idea 3, they're focusing on Taekwondo as a sport. Okay, so you've got soccer, baseball, and Taekwondo, 3 sports, all in Korea. Okay, and then again, they give supporting details, examples, and visual aids and props. So they've gone over the 3 main points, which is describing, what was most important related to sports in Korea. Okay, and now they're finished with the body, so they want to transition to the conclusion, which is the last step. Okay, so one way to do that, now it says here, signals moving from body to conclusion. So we're switching from the body to the conclusion now. At this point, I'd like to recap about what I've talked about. Now what they're saying, now at this point is a way to signal a transition, okay? And it's a very useful one when you're going to the conclusion. So what you're doing here is you're trying to create a summary. Okay, so when you say, I'd like to recap, oops, where's 2 in there? There we go. I'd like to recap about what I've talked about. You're creating a summary, and a summary is going to repeat the main points. Okay, in this case, there were 3 main ideas, main points, and so you want to repeat them or restate them so that the audience can, it's reviewed and the audience can remember well what you talked about in the body of your presentation. Okay, so this is also very important in the conclusion. Okay, and this is one that many students forget to do in their conclusion. Most students will just say, this is the end of my presentation, thank you for listening, and they don't give a summary at all. Okay, now B, restatement of thesis. Remember, the thesis is the purpose of your talk. So you want to repeat again the purpose of your talk. Okay, and here's a good way to signal that. The point of my talk today was to explain about, in this case, Korean sports, and 3 of the Korean sports that I think are so popular. Okay, now you have optional statements that you could make at the end of your presentation in the conclusion. You could restate the benefits. You might use a closer or a clincher or a call to action in which you want to get people thinking about it more. You want them to maybe show more interest in that topic. Okay, you might use a closer or a clincher. When you do the restatement of benefit, you just want to express or say why it's so important or why it's useful, okay? So these two things could be good ways to finish in the conclusion, but you don't have to do that, okay? However, these two, summary of main points and restatement of thesis, are important, okay? And then of course, at the very end, you're probably gonna say something like, thank you for listening. This is the end of my presentation. Okay, something like that. So this speech outline will be uploaded to the CTL. So you can, you can download it and then review it. Now there's one more file that I'd like to show you that will help you as you prepare your outline, okay? So let me switch files. Okay, one moment, please. And I just want to show you this file that will help you as you're preparing the outline, okay? Let's see, just one moment. Okay, so let me share that so you guys can see it. Okay, now this file here will be called function of speech, and this file will also be uploaded to the CTL, so you guys can use this to help you as you prepare your outline, okay? Now, it will go over the main points. For example, in your structure, you need to have the introduction, body, and conclusion, okay? And then here, it will give examples of things that you could say, phrases that you could use as you're giving your presentation, okay? So please look at this and use it as a guide as you're preparing your outline, okay? So for example, when you get to the introduction, like it says here, number one, you want to welcome your audience, okay? 2, introduce your subject and the purpose of your talk. 3, outline the structure of your presentation. That's like an overview. And 4, give instruction about questions. Now, 4, you don't need to worry about because the students do not have to ask questions to you during your presentation because you have a limited time. You do not need to worry about students asking you questions, okay? I might ask you some questions at the end, but you don't have to prepare for questions from students. Okay, so you don't worry about number 4. All right, but here you'll see some possible language that you can use as you do your introduction, okay? So for the greeting, you have these, like good morning, good afternoon, whatever period of time that we're gonna have our presentation. Welcome everybody, okay? Introducing your topic. Here are some ways to express that you're going to explain about your topic. Okay, and then outlining the structure or the overview. Okay, so you have some phrases to use, like to start with, okay? Then, after that, finally. So this would be a way to give an overview or outline of what you're going to be talking about. And this is still part of the introduction, okay? But this is optional. If you want to outline your structure, that's optional. You don't have to do this part. And this is also optional, giving instructions about questions. But like I said before, you don't need to worry about preparing for students to ask questions because they don't need to ask questions for midterm presentations. Okay, and in the body, if you go here, you'll see some key things to remember and to prepare for in the body of the content. Okay, so you have a list here. Please go through this. Okay, and this will help you to prepare the body and what it is that you should focus on and what you're going to talk about for the main points, okay? And then you have your conclusion. And then here you see some, just a list. To sum up means to summarize, okay? Give recommendations, thank your audience, and invite questions. And remember, that's optional because you don't have to worry about students asking you questions. Okay. Now at the next part though, you're going to have useful phrases to use. So example, if it's the conclusion, you may want to use one of these types of phrases. So please refer to this as you prepare your outline, okay, in the conclusionary part. If you're going to give recommendations, here's some phrases to use. If you want to thank your audience, these are ways to do. And then invite questions. And it's okay if you want to say that at the very end of your presentation. If you want to say, can I answer any questions, or do you have any questions? You can ask that if you want to. It's totally fine in your conclusion, but not necessary. You don't have to, okay? All right, so not worrying about questions. You do, as I mentioned earlier in the outline, you do want to use transitions as you go from the introduction to the body to the conclusion. And in the outline, I showed you examples of some transitions, but here you can see more examples, okay? In the introduction, here are some phrases to use to transition. If you're going to give an outline and overview, here are some good expressions to use, okay? And then as you're in the body of the content and you go from one main idea to another, you could use some of these phrases. Okay, now this says shift between similar points. You probably don't need to worry about this one too much, but when you're giving your body of content, the main information, when you have like similar information, but they're important, you can use these transitional phrases to indicate that it's similar but important. Okay, shift between disagreeing points. This I don't really think you're going to need to worry about because there won't be any conflict or debate during the presentation. So I would skip disagreeing points. Okay, if there is some significant issue or something that's really important you want to mention, then these transitional phrases would be useful. Also, may not be necessary, but useful. Okay. If you had to refer to previous points, like in your conclusion, these would be good. Okay, so take a look at those. Okay, introducing a side point, not really important or necessary. I don't think you'll need to worry about that one. Okay, but emphasizing importance, if it's something really important you want to emphasize it, use these transitional phrases. Okay, so and cause and effect, something happens, you get a result. You may use these kind of transitions, therefore, thus, consequently, as a result. Okay, this is significant because, or hence. So they could be useful in a cause and effect situation if it's needed in your presentation. Okay, elaboration means you want to give more detail. These would be good. Okay, they're useful. Okay, right now, if you're giving many points in your body of content and you want to do it in a sequential order, or what we call point by point, then you can do this way. One way is to do it in a sequence: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, last, finally, like that. Okay, versus sometimes students might say first, then, next, after that, and then finally. Either way would be okay, but this is one way to do it. You could give an example, and here's some expressions for that. A demonstration, if you're going to do a demonstration during your presentation, here are transitions for that, okay? If you have any quotations, you could also introduce those. And then if you transition to another speaker, right? So if you're in a team, you want to use these kind of phrases to switch from one presenter to the next presenter. Okay, these are very good. If you're working alone, you won't have to worry about that. Anecdotes are short little stories that you might mention to help give more emphasis to your point, but they're not necessary, so that's optional. And if you transition to visual aids, here are some useful examples, like in your PowerPoint display, you might have that. Okay, so finally, the last thing you should know is for the conclusion. Okay, so here's one way. Here's another for a conclusion statement. And then here's some of the ones that are popular. In short, to sum up, in a nutshell, to summarize, and conclusion. So these are all good to transition to the very end of your conclusion, to give your summary, okay? All right, so I recommend that you download this file called function speech and use that with your outline as you prepare the outline. So you have it organized and it gives you ideas and how to prepare, as well as what kind of phrases or expressions to use as you prepare the outline. Okay, so please take a look at that also. All right, and probably you'll have more questions later. So feel free to ask either through Kakao or when we meet in class. And later I'll let you know when your outline needs to be prepared by. They'll give you a due date at the CTL. And then later I'll also be able to let you know the dates when we'll start midterm presentations. But for now, you will want to start preparing by creating your outline with your topic choice and purpose of your talk, okay? All right, so we'll finish here. And okay, of course, I'll be able to answer more questions later if you have, okay? All right, thank you, everybody. And we'll end it here.